You're listening to the Player Layer podcast. I'm your host, Ivan Alexiev, and today I've got with me Giuliano Dragulano, a game designer for Dining with Dracula, which is on Kickstarter right now. It is a 2 to 4 player worker placement game, which has some innovative mechanics, a cool, quirky theme, some great artwork. And he joined me and told me about what they did to make the game, how they've been running their publishing company, Too Fat to Fly Games, and it was a awesome conversation to have. I think you will enjoy it, and thanks for listening. I'm here with Giuliano, who is one of the designers for Dining with Dracula, and this is your third game going through Kickstarter with Too Fat to Fly Games, right?
Yeah, the first one was Moonshiners of the Apocalypse, then Trouble in Templetown, and now we're going on it again with Dining with Dracula.
Awesome. The game looks really good, and I really like that you have a similar style of all three of the games. Both in artwork and theme and mechanics. But before we get into that, could you tell me about, give me a game pitch of Dining with Dracula, how it works?
Well, flavor-wise, it's about Dracula being old and tired, and he just doesn't want to do it anymore. So he invited to his castle all his, long-lost grand, whatever, sons and daughters, to compete over who will become the next Dracula and also inherit his domain, his name and domain. And as a game, it's, at the core is a worker placement, but we added a few nice twists. One of them is the clock. There's a shared clock on the board, and whenever you do an action, it might cost 1 or 2 hours. And sometimes you can do up to 3 actions on your turn, which will, eat up more hours on the shared clock, which means that everybody's trying to maximize their actions. So not only they gain more, but also to take more time from the others. Because when the clock gets to midnight, it's time for Dining with Dracula, and that's the second feature that the game has. Whatever you do during the day, building and whatever, completing various stuff, they are not victory points yet, like in most of the games, but you only gain some favors, and you need to go to Dining with Dracula, because you need to convince him to brag with those things that you did during the day, and to convince him that you are better than the others, which translates, mechanically speaking, into victory points. But the problem is that to enter the dinner, you need to bribe Dracula, and you do that with a combination of stolen sheep, which is a resource in the game. You can give him blood packs from the clinic, from the hospital in town. Or you can steal a tourist and just give him a tourist as a bribe. Only then you will be able to enter dinner and have a chance of converting your achievements of the day into actual victory points.
And is that the only way to get victory points throughout the game, by both getting the points and then having to convert them?
Yeah, I saw players, because this is probably, I don't think I saw something like this in another game. And I saw players attesting, playing it for the first time, at least for the first round, for simply forgetting about getting these resources for dinner. There's not actually a problem, because you can gather them and convert more in the next day. The game has 4 rounds, which translates into 4 days. So you have 4 chances of doing that. So even if you forget during the first round, you can come back the second or the third or whatever and convert them into victory points, and you can still win the game.
Is there only one person per round who is able to convert them, or?
Oh, no. There are. If you take a look at the board, there are 9 various locations in which you can either take up some resources, and or you can repair the souvenir shops that Dracula has, because the board represents the tourist domain or whatever around the Dracula's castle. And these are the ways you are gaining those favors you need to convert.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that maybe the third thing that makes this game different is that, let's say like this, you can have 1, 2, or even 3 actions, I said before. This is, you have your hero meeple, which is, as I said, one of the long lost grandsons and sons and daughter of Dracula, which are also slightly vampire, at least lesser vampires, let's call them. And you can, like in any worker placement game, you can move, get your hero and go to this location and do whatever action.
Mm-hmm.
But the better thing you can do, no, actually it's like this. At the beginning of each round, there is a boss, and in the prototype you don't have it yet, but in the end there will be a 3D cardboard boss, in which 8 tourists are coming at the beginning of each round. They're coming, and through random mechanisms they are spreading around the board,
mm-hmm.
like tourists visiting the Dracula's domain. And I was saying that the better thing you can do is, instead of placing your hero on an empty space, you can place your hero into a space occupied by a tourist. Because you're a vampire, you can hypnotize that tourist to go someplace else and do another action for you. This way you get 2 actions.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool when I saw the preview of the game, is that all the tourists are shared, so that you can...
and they are shared. I mean, nobody has his own workers. You have only your hero, but you have 8 tourists on the map, mm-hmm. which you can... and the thing about the game is, it's... the situation on the board changes constantly, all the time, and you need to... Whatever you are planning now, it might not be valid after 2 moves of the other players. So you need to constantly assess the situation on the board and act according to that. And there is a way to get a third action, but you need a combination that's a little more difficult to achieve, because when you do that thing that I mentioned with the tourist, you need to assign him. There are all the time there are 8 cards face up, tourist ability cards. And when you are, let's say I'm going with my hero on this location, replace a tourist, do my action with my hero, and then send the tourist to another location. When I send the tourist to another location, I need to assign him one of those cards. And these cards give extra abilities to the tourist. But the thing is, for example, one of them says, if you are placing your tourist to, let's say, take wood location, this card will give you an extra wood. But if you're sending the tourist to another location, not on the take wood, then the card has no ability. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that you need to plan while you're playing. Saying that there's a possibility to do even a third action during your turn, and that is, if you go with your hero on a location where the boss is, because the boss comes with 8 tourists, leaves 4 of them around the board, and the remaining 4, they remain in the boss. Like, they're too lazy to, mm-hmm. to go around. And if you go with your hero on the location where the boss is, and if you can pay with either a cold beer or a donut, you can steal another tourist from the boss and use him too. Mm-hmm. So that's another way to to maximize your turn. And the thing is that a round doesn't last one time around the table, but lasts as long as there are still hours on the clock. So they, depending on what am I doing or the other players are doing, it might last shorter or longer.
Yeah.
Because remember, each time you are doing an action, you eat up 1 or 2 hours per action. For example, if you take a resource, costs 1 hour. If you are repairing a souvenir stand, it costs 2 hours. And if I'm doing, let's say, the extremes are if I'm having all the three actions I can have, and I'm only taking resources, that means I'm consuming 3 hours on the clock. If I'm having the three same actions, and with all three of them I'm repairing souvenir stands, that means I'm eating up 6 hours on the clock, and there are only 24.
Mm-hmm.
But usually the game lasts 1.5 or 2 times around the table.
Yeah.
Depending on what players are doing.
Yeah, it's really good that you have that kind of built-in timer, both with the clocks and the rounds. You know, having the rounds and the game. First of all, I want to ask you, actually, before we get into more of the game, I want to ask you about kind of building that brand of your of Too Fat to Fly games, because I see all of the games, all of them have similar themes, as in you have takes on kind of like horror themes, and you have similar artwork. And I feel like you're doing a really good job of staying consistent with your games, at least thematically. And
well, maybe you haven't noticed, but with each game of ours, our logo changes slightly. We have that logo with the fat pig sitting like a Buddha, and for the first game, for Moonshiners, that was the basic logo. But on the second game, the Trouble in Templetown, since that game is about viruses and bacteria inside the body and all that, that little pig is dressed as a medic.
Yeah.
And now with Dining with Dracula, the pig, which has a name, by the way, his name is Ollie, he is dressed as a vampire. And with every game that we're doing, we're changing. I mean, it's still 100% recognizable, but he changes up his clothes. That's the thing. And yeah, well, I guess we're trying to do mechanics aside. We're trying to do funny games with at least some humor in it. Yeah. And that's why we're always looking for a team that is different and funny and quirky and tongue-in-cheek and all that.
Yeah, and you definitely do it. What I feel is always you take something that's usually serious, like the apocalypse or vampires, and you just put that twist in there.
That's our recipe.
Yeah. And I think it works really well, and it looks really good. And what about mechanics? Because I think Moonshiners is also a worker placement.
That's Moonshiners is I don't know, I would call it a light 4X.
Mm-hmm.
It is worker placement, but there's also some dice combat. It's an how do you call it? A gateway 4X, because usually 4X games are kind of heavy, and Moonshiners is not. I mean, it combines various mechanics. Templetown is I don't know. It's like Pandemic, but with a few twists. And I'm not talking about flavor. I'm talking about mechanics now.
Mm-hmm. How do you usually sit down to make a game? What are your first thoughts when you sit down and you know that you want to make the next game? Do you usually, like, first of all, do you first choose sort of what you want the theme to be? Or do you know what kind of mechanics you want?
Yeah, actually, it's a bit of both, because I have some ideas for themes, and I have some random ideas that whenever I get an idea, I jot it down, and some ideas for mechanics. And then, I don't know, for Dining with Dracula, I think we started with, how cool it would be to make a game about Dracula wanting to retire. And that's all that we knew in the beginning. Not long after that, I don't remember. I think it was both. Team and mechanics come kind of in the same time, at the same time. But for example, I don't know, one of the ideas I remember we didn't work anything on it, but we have an idea for a easy card game, something about nuns versus Terminators or something like that. But it's just an idea. It might never happen. I don't know.
Could you tell me a little bit about the team that you work with? I know that you work with your wife, right?
Yeah. core team at the moment is just me and my wife, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we're working with a lot of people, and then the team gets extended with the artists, with other designers, with testers. Oh, one thing I'd like to talk about. We had this idea now for Dining with Dracula, and created this, I don't know, let's call it an event or whatever, called Dracula Around the World.
Yeah.
And we printed 20 something prototypes, and we sent them around the world, mostly, of course, in Europe and US, and to various gaming groups. And each they had about 7 to 10 days to test the game, to give us feedback, to ideas, whatever, and then send it further to another group. And now there are 20 games traveling all around the world, and we're still gathering. We still got, the game is quite done, but we still got some cool ideas about how, which I think we're going to use and improve the game, because it would be a pity not to. We also got to improve the manual, the rule book a little bit. I mean, we had play tested and blind tested the game before, but now with this Dracula Around the World thing, we got even more feedback.
Yeah, it's an awesome idea, and it's so great to there's at least 3 or 4 different things which make that idea so cool in my head, and that's. First of all, that you get so many people to try the game. You get some free marketing just from, well, not free, but you get some marketing just from having so many people try and talk about it, and take pictures with the game, and also it's just a cool new idea where I haven't seen any other game go around so much.
Well, it also fits with somehow it fits with the theme, because in Bram Stoker's book, Dracula, and the whole story, it's around Europe at least. They're traveling in various places, but of course that wasn't a reason for doing that. But anyway.
No, it's awesome, and I hope that what you got from it is some good responses. And
oh yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I mean, we're at our 3rd game, and I still have no idea, how should I say this. As I said, we tested it and blind tested the game before starting this thing, the Dracula Around the World, and we still got good ideas. I think you can get forever. I mean, if you're circling around the game for about 10 years, I'm sure in the 12 months of the 10th year, there's a chance you will still get an idea how to improve the game. But on the rule book, it was interesting, because we discovered that there were 2 specific paragraphs, short sentences, that some people didn't get. The others did, but some people, I don't know. Probably it's about how each of us reads and interprets a manual. I don't know. But it was a very good thing, because we changed it immediately. I mean, after 2 people mentioned that, we immediately went back, and first time we said, yeah, okay, I don't know, the others got it. But then when the second guy came in and said, I didn't got that, I said, okay, this needs to be changed, improved, and we did it. I think this around the world thing, it's a good idea. We're gonna keep it. For the next project.
I think that we're gonna see more and more publishers doing it.
I think it's not. We're not the first. I can't say any specific names, because I don't remember. But I think I saw it. Maybe not. Maybe not with a name on it, like we're doing it. But I think I saw it before. I think it's.
Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not wide practice yet. There's not a lot of people doing it. Whilst you're gonna be sending out review copies and preview copies. Why not send prototypes to just players and see how they feel about the game? Yeah,
the players, they matter the most.
For the game, do you have any lore written out for it, or any story to the game, or do you just let the setting sort of tell the story for itself?
there is a little bit of lore about, as I said, Dracula being tired, and which will be in the rule book, also on the website, which will be done in 1 or 2 days. There's also some flavor texts on the tourist cards, which are I don't know. We hope they are funny. Also, there are the gift cards, which have some nice flavor texts. There are some crazy objects you can present to Dracula as gifts. There are of two categories. There are things that Dracula would like I don't know, velvet linen coffin, or things that Dracula won't like, which you use, to protect from him or whatever. I don't know. There's a funny thing that I remember that comes to my mind right now is UV disco helmet, which is like a helmet you can have on your head with mirrors like a disco ball, which through some lamps shines UV light, and UV is like sun, so Dracula would not like that. So it's a crazy contraption and things like that. And this, I was saying that these cards also have some flavors, and all of these, I don't know, they are creating the lore for the game.
Yeah, and what about your inspiration for games, and where do you start off designing a game?
If we have an idea about a nice mechanic that we wanted to try, we begin building around it. For example, we had one idea for Dracula. It's interesting. We couldn't make it work, but we built the entire game around it. But the initial idea that we had, we weren't able to make it work, so it was discarded. But the whole game was built around that idea. Or we might have an idea for a theme, and as I was saying earlier, try to look for ideas that we already have or not, what mechanics that might fit with that theme. Mm-hmm. But usually it's a mixed process. I mean, I don't think we're starting with, let's make a game about this and that. What mechanic would be appropriate for that? It's kind of because I don't know, when you're saying, it's mixed. It's a mixed thing. I don't know. We started with Moonshiners about, I think there are 4 years ago, when we first started thinking about it. It was the most difficult to design because in the beginning we had no idea what kind of game we want to make. We were just playing around, and we weren't even 100% sure that we're going to do that for a living. I mean, it was in the beginning, at the very, very beginning, it was just, let's try and make a game. And then it built up slightly from there.
Yeah.
Up until a point where it was clear that we really want to make that game.
So what were you doing before it became your full-time job, and how did you get to that point where you could make your living off of games?
Well, we decided that we really want to do this after our first game, Moonshiners, which founded quite well, better than we expected. And although it was, doing Kickstarters, especially in a team of only 2 people, is quite stressful. But we said, okay, this is fun. We probably know what we are doing. Let's try another one. Mm. And then another one. And before that, I am, more than 20 years 3D animator and animation director. And Laura, she was in PR and marketing.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome that you've been able to kind of translate those skills, I'm assuming, to making the games.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, in many ways, at least thematically, mechanically is different, but thematically, thinking of a game and coming up with a team and all that is very similar with directing a movie, an animation. For Laura, she's doing exactly the same thing as before, marketing and PR. There's this saying with the movies that they are never completed. You just letting them go. I think somehow is similar. I mean, you try to test it the best you can, as many times as you can. You try to see all the angles. At some point, I mean, of course, it feels more and more round, the whole thing. and you see that with every iteration. I mean, and the questions or the problems from the testers are less and less and less and less up until there comes a period of I like it or I don't like it, but no other problems. But in the end, as I said earlier, I mean, you probably can improve a game forever, because there's one thing to have a finished game with a finished rule book that works 100%. And so it's a completely different thing to have a perfect game.
Before we finish up, what would your advice be to new creators and people who want to kickstart their games? Because now you have quite a bit of experience with it.
Well, kickstarting games, it's really, really not an easy thing. It's full-time job, and you need to do your homework, read everything that you can read. I mean, I remember for our first campaign, we postponed the launch at least 3 times. I mean, 3 times we didn't without announcing it yet, but we thought we were ready, and then we said, you know what, we're not ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of were. I mean, but we kind of were prepared, and then we said we can be better prepared than this, and then we postponed it then and again. So I think Stegmaier said that, I'm gonna paraphrase that because I don't remember the exact quote, but launch only when we're ready, not earlier. And that's a very good advice, because it's so easy to come up with a deadline, and then because of various reasons not be able to meet the deadline, and then you say, oh, I got to launch because I said I'm going to launch. Another thing, announce your launch only when you are 100% sure that you are ready that you're going to launch that day. Don't brag about it before because it might backfire on you. I think that would be a good advice. Be as prepared as you can and don't rush, because there's a lot of things to be done and a lot of things to understand. I mean, if you don't have experience with it, and even if you have, it's difficult.
Yeah, and there's something that you learn every time. Every time there's something that you see that you could have done better.
Oh, yeah. But I think that's in every aspect of life, so let's not complain about it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
That's valid for anything.
Yeah, thank you so much for the interview, and
thank you.
I can't wait to see more of your games because I think they look great.
Thank you.